They say power protects you from everything. But at exactly midnight, in a penthouse worth more than some country's GDP, the most powerful man in America was on his knees, begging for air. His name was Peter M. Not Peter Miller, not Peter Matthews, just M. Because when you control that much money, you don't need a full name. Peter M. could tank a stock with a tweet, bankrupt a competitor with a phone call, make presidents sweat with a single meeting. They called him the God of Wall Street. But gods don't gasp for oxygen in the middle of the night. Gods don't claw at their chests like something inside is trying to rip its way out. And gods definitely don't cry. 12 hours earlier, Alice was having the worst day of her life. She'd been working as a temp assistant at M Capital for exactly 3 weeks. 3 weeks of invisible existence. 3 weeks of being called you instead of her actual name. 3 weeks of watching billionaires treat people like furniture. And on week 3, day 5, hour 2, she spilled water on Peter M.'s Italian leather shoes. Not coffee, not wine, water. Clear, harmless, 25-cent water. Peter didn't yell. That would have been human. Instead, he looked at her the way you'd look at a stain on the sidewalk. "You're done," he said, voice flat, eyes empty. "Mr. M, I'm so—" "Security will escort you out." Alice felt her face burn. Around her, the office pretended not to notice. Everyone had learned the same survival skill: blend into the walls when Peter M speaks. She grabbed her bag, held her head high. But inside, she was screaming. Because this wasn't just a job. This was her mother's medical bills, her brother's tuition, the rent she was already 2 months behind on. This was everything. And it was gone because of water. Alice made it to the elevator before she realized. Her wallet, still on her desk. She could leave it, come back tomorrow during business hours, face the humiliation again. Or she could sneak back in now, grab it, disappear forever. The office was almost empty. Peter's floor was dark except for his corner suite. Alice moved quickly, quietly. She grabbed her wallet, turned to leave, and that's when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong in the world of Peter M. A gasp, desperate, wet, terrified. It came from his office. Alice's instinct screamed, "Run! This isn't your problem anymore." But curiosity is a dangerous thing. She pushed the door open and froze. Peter M. was on the floor, not sitting, not kneeling, collapsed. His tie was ripped open, his hands clawed at his throat. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, rolling back, and his lips, they were turning blue. Alice's first thought, heart attack. Her second thought, call 911. Her third thought, he fired you 6 hours ago. But even Alice, with all her justified anger, couldn't watch someone die. She dropped to her knees beside him, reaching for her phone. "Don't!" His voice was a rasp, barely human. His hand shot out, gripping her wrist with shocking strength for someone who looked half dead. "No hospital," he choked out. "No one can know." Alice stared at him. This was the man who destroyed her life that morning, the man who treated people like disposable tools. And now he was begging her. "What's happening to you?" she whispered. Peter's eyes met hers, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something real. Fear. "It's not what you think." His body convulsed. He doubled over, gasping, shaking. Alice's mind raced. This wasn't a heart attack. This wasn't a seizure. This was something else entirely. And then she saw it. On his desk, half hidden under papers, a pill bottle. She grabbed it, read the label. Not a prescription. A name. Graves Family Pharmaceuticals, Experimental Compound 7. Alice's blood went cold.
Graves. She knew that name. Everyone knew that name. 10 years ago, the Graves family, one of the wealthiest dynasties in America, had died in a private plane crash. All 7 members gone in an instant. The official story, mechanical failure. But there were always rumors, whispers of corporate sabotage, of a hostile takeover gone wrong, of someone who benefited massively from their deaths. Someone like Peter M. Alice looked at the man gasping on the floor, and suddenly his curse made perfect sense.
"You didn't have a heart attack 10 years ago," Alice said quietly. Peter's eyes snapped to hers. "You had a conscience attack." His breathing slowed. The pain was subsiding now. It always did after the first 5 minutes. But Alice's words hit harder than any physical agony. "That pill," she continued, holding up the bottle, "isn't treating a disease. It's suppressing guilt." Peter said nothing. "The Graves family. You were there when they died, weren't you?" Still nothing. "And every night at midnight, your body remembers." Peter's jaw clenched. Most people would have called an ambulance, documented everything, sold the story to the highest bidder. But Alice wasn't most people. She leaned in close. "I don't want your money," she whispered. Peter's eyes narrowed. "Then what do you want?" "I want to watch you beg the way you made me beg today." Silence. "But," Alice continued, standing up, "I also want my dignity back. And I want to understand why the god of Wall Street is actually just a man drowning in his own secrets." She placed the pill bottle back on his desk. "So here's what's going to happen, Mr. M." Peter pulled himself to his feet, still shaky but regaining composure. "Tomorrow morning, you're going to reinstate me, not as a temp, as your executive assistant." "And if I refuse?" Alice smiled. "Then I wonder what the SEC would say about a CEO who's been self-medicating with illegal experimental drugs to suppress PTSD from a corporate crime scene." Peter's face went white. Not from pain this time, from pure, ice-cold fear. Because Alice Chen, the girl he'd fired for spilling water, had just become the most dangerous person in his life.
Monday morning. Alice walked into M Capital wearing the same outfit from Friday, but this time she wasn't invisible. Peter's secretary, a woman named Diane who'd never once made eye contact with Alice, practically jumped out of her chair. "Miss Chen, Mr. M is expecting you." The office buzzed. Whispers followed Alice like a shadow. "She's back." How? What did she do? Peter was waiting in his office, suit perfect, hair immaculate, every trace of Friday night's breakdown erased. But Alice saw it now, the micro-tension in his jaw, the way his hands gripped the desk a fraction too tight. He slid a document across to her. Executive Assistant Agreement, Confidential Retention Contract. Alice skimmed it. Salary, $250,000 a year. Benefits, full medical, housing allowance, car service. Duration, 1 year minimum. Special conditions? Alice's eyebrows shot up. Must be available 24/7, including nights and weekends? Non-negotiable, Peter said flatly. Must accompany Mr. M to all social and business functions? Yes. Must reside in accommodations selected by Mr. M for security purposes. Alice looked up. You want me to live under your supervision? Peter leaned back. I want you where I can see you. Because you don't trust me. Because you know things that could destroy me. Silence. Alice should have been terrified. This was a cage disguised as a contract. But instead, she felt something else. Power. For the first time in her life, she had leverage over someone who thought they were untouchable. I have one condition, Alice said. Peter waited. My family's debts, medical bills, student loans, back rent, all of it, cleared. Done. Before I sign. Peter's eyes flickered with surprise. Smart girl. He picked up his phone. The door burst open. A man in his 60s, silver-haired, expensive suit. Peter's general counsel, Richard Moss. Peter, a word, now. Richard's eyes cut to Alice like a knife.
alone.
Alice stood. "I'll wait outside." "No." Peter's voice was steel. "She stays." Richard's face reddened. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." "Peter, the board is already asking questions about your health, your judgment, and now you want to pay this girl $250,000 and house her in company property?" "Yes." "On what grounds?" "Executive privilege." Richard slammed a folder on the desk. "Executive privilege doesn't cover liability. If she's blackmailing you, she's not. Then you need to explain to me why a temp who was fired on Friday is now being offered a golden parachute on Monday." Alice felt her face burn, but Peter stood, slowly, deliberately. "Richard, you've been my lawyer for 12 years. Exactly, which is why you know I don't explain my decisions to anyone, not the board, not shareholders, and certainly not you." Richard's jaw clenched. "Sign the payment authorizations or I'll find a lawyer who will." The room went silent. Richard looked at Alice, then at Peter. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "It won't be my first." Richard grabbed the folder and left. The door slammed. Alice exhaled slowly. "He's going to investigate me," she said. "Let him." "Peter, he won't find anything because there's nothing to find except a girl who needed a job and got unlucky with water. You just made an enemy of your own lawyer." Peter sat back down, resumed typing on his computer like nothing had happened. "Richard isn't my enemy, he's just scared." "Of what?" Peter's fingers paused on the keyboard. "Of me losing control."
2 hours later, the money transferred. But not all of it. $127,000 requested, $63,500 approved. Alice stared at the bank notification. Half. They'd paid half. She stormed into Peter's office. "Explain." Peter didn't look up from his screen. Richard blocked the full amount, said it required board approval. "That wasn't the deal. The deal was that I clear your debts. I didn't specify the timeline." Alice's hands clenched into fists. "So what? I work for you for free until the board decides I'm worthy? You work for me at full salary starting today. The remaining debt gets cleared in 3 months when the board cycle resets." 3 months? Or you can walk away right now. Keep the $63,500, go find another job. Silence. Alice knew what he was doing. Testing her. Seeing if she'd stay when things got hard. She grabbed the contract, signed it, slid it back across the desk. 3 months, she said quietly. But if you don't clear the rest by then, I walk, and I take everything I know with me. Peter finally looked up, and for the first time she saw something like admiration in his eyes. Deal. The rumors started immediately. Peter M. has a new assistant. No, not just an assistant. She lives with him. She accompanies him everywhere. She's always there. Within a week, the whispers evolved. Are they? No, Peter M. doesn't date. But she's different. He looks at her differently. He listens when she speaks. By week 2, the elite circles were obsessed. Who was this girl who'd done the impossible? Who was Alice? The truth was simpler than they imagined, and far more complicated. "You need to smile more." Alice looked up from her laptop. They were in Peter's home office, a converted library with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. "I smile plenty," she said. "Not convincingly. Maybe because I'm not convinced." Peter closed his own laptop. "Tonight's gala is important. These people are vultures. They can smell weakness. So you need me to be your armor. I need you to be my partner." The word hung in the air. "We're not partners," Alice said carefully. "We're co-conspirators." "Then conspire better." He stood, walked to a closet Alice hadn't noticed before. When he opened it, her breath caught. Dresses.
Dozens of them, designer labels she'd only seen in magazines. "Pick one," Peter said. "I'm not Cinderella." "No, you're the woman who's going to help me survive the most important night of my career." Alice stood, walked to the closet. Her fingers brushed against silk, velvet, beaded fabric. She pulled out a deep emerald gown. Simple, elegant, powerful. "This one." Peter nodded. "Good choice. I have taste, even if I didn't have money." For the first time, she saw something flicker across his face. Was it respect? The Metropolitan Club. Old money, new money, blood money. All of it converged under crystal chandeliers and behind champagne smiles. Alice walked in on Peter's arm, and every head turned. Not because of him, they were used to Peter M., because of her. The whispers intensified. Who is she? Where did she come from? Why her? Alice felt like a specimen under glass, but Peter's hand was steady on the small of her back. "Breathe," he murmured. "I am breathing. You're holding your breath." Damn it. He was right. A woman in diamonds approached, late 50s, surgical precision to her smile. "Peter, darling." "Catherine." Peter's voice was warm, but Alice heard the calculation underneath. Catherine's eyes slid to Alice. "And who is this enchanting creature?" "Alice Chen, my fiancée." Alice's heart stopped. Fiancé? That wasn't in the contract. Catherine's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went sharp. Fiancé? How sudden. "When you know," Peter said smoothly. He pulled Alice closer. She forced herself to smile, to lean into him, to play the part. But inside, she was screaming, "We didn't discuss this. This wasn't the plan. What the hell are you doing?"
20 minutes later, Alice dragged Peter into a hallway. "Fiancé?" she hissed. "It was necessary. You can't just—" Catherine Winters runs the largest investment firm in Asia. She's been looking for weakness in my armor for 5 years. So you made me your shield? I made us believable." Alice's hands clenched. "A contract is one thing. A fake engagement is strategic. Insane." Peter stepped closer. Too close. She could see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes, smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. "Do you know what they were saying about me before you walked in?" he asked quietly. "I don't care. They were saying I'm finished, that I'm losing my edge, that the god of Wall Street is mortal after all. You are mortal, but they can't know that." His intensity was overwhelming. Alice felt something twist in her chest. Anger, resentment, and something else she didn't want to name. "So what do I get out of this upgrade?" she demanded. Peter pulled something from his pocket. A ring. Not just any ring. A flawless emerald-cut diamond, easily 6 carats, surrounded by smaller stones that probably cost more than her childhood home. "This," he said. Alice stared. "Put it on," Peter said. "Make it real." "This is crazy." "This is survival." Their eyes locked, and Alice realized he wasn't asking, he was pleading. The god of Wall Street was begging her. Again. She took the ring, slid it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. Peter M. never did anything without precision. But as the weight of the diamond settled on her hand, Alice felt something shift. This wasn't just a performance anymore. This was dangerous. His name was Ralph Cortez. If Peter was the god of Wall Street, Ralph was the serpent in the garden. He'd built his empire on the corpses of other people's companies, hostile takeovers, leveraged buyouts, financial warfare. And he hated Peter M. Because 10 years ago, they'd been partners, until the Graves family deal, until everything went wrong, until Peter walked away with the empire and Ralph got nothing. Now,
Ralph stood across the gala floor, watching Peter and Alice with predatory interest. He'd heard the whispers. Fiancé. Sudden. Convenient. Ralph smiled, because he knew something no one else did. He knew what happened 10 years ago, and he knew Peter's secret was about to implode.
The attack came at midnight. Of course it did. Peter and Alice were back at the penthouse. The gala had been exhausting. Hours of smiling, performing, lying. Alice was removing her jewelry when Peter's phone buzzed. Then again, and again. She watched his face drain of color. What is it? Peter's hand shook as he showed her the screen. An email from an anonymous sender. Subject, the truth about Graves. Inside, photos, documents, flight manifests, pharmaceutical records, and a message. Tomorrow at noon, the world learns who Peter M. really is, unless you transfer $500 million to the attached account. You have 12 hours. Alice's blood ran cold. Ralph, Peter whispered. Your old partner? He's going to destroy everything. Peter sank into a chair. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked defeated. I can't pay, he said quietly. Not because I don't have the money, but because it won't stop. He'll bleed me forever. Then we don't pay. Peter looked up. Alice, we don't hide. We don't run. You don't understand what's in those files. So tell me. Silence. Tell me what really happened 10 years ago.
Peter stood, walked to the window. New York glittered below him, a city he'd conquered, a city that would turn on him in an instant. The Graves family, he began, were pharmaceutical pioneers. They developed Compound 7, a drug that could suppress trauma memories without erasing them. Alice listened. It was revolutionary, worth billions. And you wanted it. Ralph and I both did. We were young, hungry, ruthless. Peter's reflection in the glass looked haunted. We approached the family with an acquisition offer. They refused. So Ralph suggested we encourage them. Alice's stomach turned. There was a safety inspection on their private jet. Ralph bribed the mechanic to file a false report. Peter, we thought it would ground the plane, force them to negotiate from a position of weakness. His voice cracked. We didn't know they'd fly anyway. We didn't know the mechanic had done more than file paperwork. We didn't know he actually sabotaged the hydraulics. Oh my God. 7 people died, including 2 children. Tears streaked down Peter's face. Ralph disappeared the evidence, paid off the mechanic, made it look like an accident. And you? I panicked. I was 28 years old. I had just watched 7 people die because of a plan I agreed to. So you took the deal anyway. Ralph gave me a choice. Take the company and keep quiet, or go to prison with him. That's not a choice. It felt like one at the time. Peter turned to face her. I took the company, built an empire on their graves. And Ralph disappeared, changed his name, started over. Until now. Alice walked to him. Why is he coming after you now, after 10 years? Peter's laugh was bitter. Because I'm vulnerable. Because everyone's watching. Because he knows I'm weak. You're not weak. I have panic attacks every night at midnight, Alice. I'm drowning in guilt. I'm one leaked document away from prison. Then we leak it first. Peter's head snapped up. What? We take away his power. We tell the truth. Alice, you don't understand. I understand exactly. Her voice was fierce. Ralph has power because you're scared. The moment you stop being scared, he has nothing. The moment I tell the truth, I lose everything. You're already losing everything. Silence.
Alice grabbed his shoulders. "You have a choice, Peter. You can let Ralph control you for the rest of your life, or you can take control back. And go to prison? Maybe, maybe not, but at least you'll be free." Peter stared at her. This girl, this impossible, stubborn, fearless girl. "You'd stand by me?" he asked quietly. "Even if I confess? Even if I go to prison?" Alice's eyes softened. "I'll stand by you if you tell the truth. That's the deal." Peter's breath caught, and for the first time in 10 years, he felt something shift. Hope.
But the next morning, when Alice woke up, Peter was gone. No note, no text. Just gone. She checked the news. Breaking. Peter M. transfers $500 million in overnight transaction. Alice's heart stopped. He paid. After everything they'd talked about, after she'd trusted him, he paid Ralph. She called his phone. Voicemail. She called his office. "Mr. M. is unavailable." She went to the penthouse. Empty. Alice stood in the living room, surrounded by luxury she'd never asked for, wearing a ring that meant nothing. And she realized she'd been played. Peter M. was exactly who she'd thought he was from the beginning. A coward, a liar, a man who bought his way out of everything. Alice pulled off the ring, set it on the counter, and walked out. But 2 hours later, every screen in New York lit up. Live, Peter M. press conference. Alice stopped walking, found a screen, and watched. Peter stood at a podium, alone. No lawyers, no PR team, just him. "My name is Peter M.," he began, "and I'm here to confess to a crime." The room erupted. 10 years ago, I was complicit in the deaths of 7 people. Cameras flashed like lightning. The Graves family died in a plane crash. The official story was mechanical failure, but the truth is that the plane was sabotaged. Gasps, shouts. My former business partner, Ralph Cortez, orchestrated the sabotage. He bribed a mechanic, he destroyed evidence, he committed murder. Peter's voice didn't waver. And I knew what he'd done, and I said nothing. Alice's hand covered her mouth. "Last night, Mr. Cortez attempted to extort $500 million from me to keep this secret buried." Peter held up a document. "I paid him." The crowd went wild. But the payment was a tracer. As of 1 hour ago, federal agents arrested Ralph Cortez for extortion, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. The room exploded. "I am also turning myself in to the FBI for my role in the Graves family tragedy. I will cooperate fully with their investigation." Peter's eyes found the camera, and Alice knew, somehow, he was looking at her. 10 years ago, I made a choice out of fear. Today, I'm making a different choice. His voice cracked. "I'm choosing truth, even if it costs me everything." Peter M. was arrested on live television. The footage went viral, the god of Wall Street in handcuffs. The media frenzy was unlike anything in financial history. But the FBI investigation was complicated. Peter had been complicit, yes, but he'd been 28, terrified, manipulated by Ralph, and he'd spent 10 years living in psychological hell. The prosecution offered a deal: testify against Ralph, surrender his CEO position, liquidate personal assets to create a victims fund, 7 years probation, no prison time. Peter took the deal, but the court of public opinion was harsher. His reputation was obliterated. M Capital's stock crashed, investors fled, partners distanced themselves. The foundation he created, the Graves Family Foundation, was protested. Blood money, too little, too late, a coward's guilt. Peter lost his company, his fortune, his legacy. Everything he'd built for 10 years, gone.
Alice found him in a small apartment in Brooklyn. Not a penthouse, not even a nice building. Just normal. She knocked. Peter opened the door. He looked different, thinner, tired, but his eyes were clear. No more midnight panic attacks, no more pills. "You paid Ralph before you turned him in," Alice said. "I had to. The FBI needed to catch him in the act. You could have told me. I thought you'd try to stop me." "I would have." They stood in the doorway. "Why are you here, Alice?" Peter asked quietly. She held up an envelope. "The Graves family, the youngest daughter, Emma. She survived the crash. Did you know that?" Peter's face went white. "She was 6 years old, paralyzed from the waist down. She's been in a care facility for 10 years. Alice, your foundation, the one everyone's protesting, it paid for her surgery last month, experimental procedure. She's walking again." Peter's eyes filled with tears. "She wanted me to give you this." Alice handed him the envelope. Inside, a child's drawing, a stick figure in a wheelchair, another stick figure helping them stand. At the bottom, in crayon, "Thank you for helping me fly again, Emma." Peter broke, completely. Alice stepped inside, closed the door, held him while he sobbed. "You can't change the past, but you're changing the future." When he finally stopped crying, he looked at her. "I lost everything." "Not everything." She pulled something from her pocket. "The emerald ring. I think you forgot this." Peter stared. "Alice, you don't have to. I'm not here because I have to be. I'm here because I want to be." She took his hand. The god of Wall Street was a monster, but Peter M., he's just a man trying to do better. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not." She smiled. "But you're stuck with me anyway." He pulled her close and kissed her like she was the only real thing in his world, because she was.